Hello, everyone. Good morning, good evening,
Good afternoon
good afternoon,
and good night.
good night.
Bye, everybody.
Yes, whatever time you're watching this, welcome back to the Chip Lunch Podcast, where we talk to everyone here at Soul Revival Church and hear about their stories of how they became Christian and how it's impacted their lives. Ethan,
Hello, John.
welcome back.
It's good to
I
be
was
back.
flying solo as co-host, or as I wasn't a co-host. I was just
You
a
were just host. You were hosting up a storm.
I hope not. But you're back, and why were you away? You were at schoolies.
I was.
Give us a quick lowdown
A bunch of us took
before we get to our guest.
our one of our school leavers for a little bit of a trip.
Your
and
brother?
On that trip, it was my brother. It was really good fun. We we made the whole thing Lord of the Rings themed, and the whole aim was to find this really rare pink slug that Ek is going to put a photo of on the screen now. It is awe-inspiring.
It's very impressive. It's
beautiful.
only. Where did you go? Because
We went to-
you can only get it there.
We
You can find it there.
went all the way to Mount Capitar, which is in Narrabri, which from here is 7 hours northwest. And so we drove there to see this slug, and we spent 2 nights in a caravan park, and then and we found the slug. It is there is only a few of them left at all in the wild. They are only found on this mountain in this one spot in Australia. They are there's not many of them left. They grow to about 20 centimeters, which is a little bit ridiculous for a slug. They're fluoro pink.
Crazy. Have you seen it?
I've seen photos,
Oh,
and I
okay.
had so many questions about this adventure. I was like asking Braden, like,
Yeah.
how, who, what, when, why. Like,
Why is a really good question. The answer to that is we don't know. But it was glorious. It was truly, truly glorious the whole time. It was really silly. And we bought recorders for the car ride.
As in, like the flute style recorder
yes.
thingy.
So we could learn.
Part of the woodwind family.
Yes,
which-
yes.
I think
Ours
it
were
is,
ours
isn't
were part of the $5 plastic family from Officeworks.
Yeah.
Um,
Why do they have recorders
I
at
don't.
office work?
Something to do. I think it's because kids learn recorder when they're at school.
For school.
Yeah,
been there.
yeah. Anyway, so we were learning the Lord of the Rings theme on the recorder on the way
Yes.
there,
And
which is a
how did you
horrific
go?
experience.
Did you actually?
Some of them learnt it. It was great. I was driving the whole time, so I couldn't really figure it out.
does
but
it help draw out the slug? Like, what is
Oh,
this
yeah.
area?
Well, okay, so once we found the slug, which is you can only find it if it's raining or if it's at nighttime, and it just happened the only day of the trip it rained was when we're on top of this mountain. It is only found at the summit of a mountain. Like,
amazing.
it's crazy. Anyway, so we get
Perfect
out,
timing.
we're looking around for like 2 hours for this slug, and like maybe 15 minutes of it is spent in the car waiting out a storm that's hit. Anyway, we get out and we're looking for these slugs, and then Braden sees it and it's great and it's exciting. And then one of the other boys goes and grabs the flutes, and we like serenade the slug. And it was for the whole time we were looking at it completely still. And then we started playing the flutes, and it just was like, get me out of here.
Oh,
like
really?
it started like running.
So bad.
It was like, this is horrendous.
As fast as a slug can.
And then,
Run.
and then when we stopped playing, it stopped moving. It was like, okay, cool, we're good now. Like, I don't need to run away anymore. But yeah, it was like, I reckon there's maybe, I'm gonna make a guesstimate of 50 in the wild. It's probably too much. Like there's none up there.
Endangered.
Yeah. Oh, there's like nothing. There's none left. And so we saw one in 2 hours of searching, and we then downloaded the Slug Sleuth app,
I heard.
which is an app dedicated to these slugs. Not slugs at all. These specific slugs.
Just those ones.
Those slugs. And so we downloaded the app, and we reported our findings, and we posted photos of us in our Lord of the Rings robes playing recorder to the slug.
It must be like a university or some like endangered animal.
Yeah, it was a
organisation.
government.
Yeah.
It was a government thing. They were like,
They would have loved that. These idiots. They probably stepped on 3 of them.
yeah,
Like-
fully. Oh goodness. But yes, it was very excellent. But that's where I was. I was hunting a slug.
Very nice. Incidentally, the recorder is actually a family within the larger woodwind musical
There you go.
instrument family. So there you go.
There you go.
Why don't we introduce our guest?
Sounds like a
We've
good idea.
heard from her, but we haven't introduced her. Michelle,
Speaking
welcome.
of slugs.
I was not going to say that.
Just trying to help you find a segue. But sorry.
It's good though. I'm all here for the
That was
laughs,
so
and I'm
funny.
glad that if I said that, I think I'm not getting in a fair bit of trouble.
Yeah,
So,
that's right. I've said it.
Thank
It's all
you.
good.
Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you.
It's very nice to have you here. You said that, like some other people, you're a little bit nervous and apprehensive, but also
Yeah.
excited.
Yes. I've listened to a few
Yes.
podcasts.
And
Okay.
are you feeling a little bit of sibling rivalry with your sister who's already been on?
I think it's probably started before I was born. I had no choice in that. But I listened to a podcast, but it's been a little while since I listened to it right after it came out.
That's
So
fine.
I
I wasn't
can't
expecting
really
you to
remember what she
recall
said.
what she said,
Yeah.
but I was just wondering, are you going to compete with her, like in terms of languages and things like that? Or
No.
she's the language person.
She's the language person. She's a lot of a things person. I think we're similar in a lot of ways, but also very different in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And so, hopefully you won't feel like this is a repeat. But we sound the same. So people who...
Your voice is quite similar.
Yeah. So you might be confused if you listen to this, as most people would listen to podcasts. Yeah.
No, but it's really cool
That's
to have you
okay.
on.
Thanks.
What was the other question I was going to ask you before the main question?
I was about to say something about chips is a question. But
Yeah,
never
well,
mind.
we can-
You were gonna
let's-
ask- you were going to
Is
ask a
that
different
a main
question.
question?
I had a question related to what you said, and then I've forgotten because I was making sure that I hadn't offended anyone by saying slug, and then I realised I hadn't said slug. So that was all good.
It's okay. It wasn't me.
It was okay. It wasn't me. I didn't call anyone slugs. You should have just called yourself slugs, like on school.
But we were the Fellowship of the Slug.
Okay.
It was.
Oh, because you're trying to find
because
it.
we were trying to find
No, that
it.
makes sense.
The one slug to rule them
One
all.
slug to rule them all. This is it. It was legit, it was so good.
Right. Well, let's get started with the podcast, Michelle.
Yeah.
How do you like to eat your hot chips?
So I've got a bit of a cheesy answer and not literal cheese.
Oh,
I
it's like,
think
it's
I was
like,
like,
whoa,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
that's
I like
spicy.
a four
No.
cheese mix on my chips.
The pizza, no.
That's loaded fries. That's a thing. Sorry.
Yeah, no, because I'm that kind of person. I've thought about how I best enjoy chips, and it is with friends, like sharing.
Aw.
There you
On
go,
the Chip
cue
Lunch
that.
podcast, maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
Aw. With friends.
With friends, yeah. It
You
is.
get double points.
Oh, it's much a nicer experience just sharing a bowl of chips together, whether that's, whether that's from the servo with chicken salt or from a restaurant with normal salt. Either way, it's good. But if you're eating a bowl of chips yourself, sometimes that's more comfort eating than enjoying it properly.
Yeah,
I think.
okay. So it's kind of like
For me.
the sharing idea. All right, I like that.
You know, that's a really good point. I don't know if I ever eat chips alone. Like I wouldn't like be like, you know what I'm feeling at for my lunch personally, for just me today.
Hot chips.
I'm going to get some hot chips. I don't think I do that.
It's very shareable, man.
Yeah.
I think that's a good point. Except then I'm thinking of what Wayne said when he's like, sometimes I'll put my chips in the fridge.
Yeah, I don't want to share. I don't want to share chips with Wayne. That's.
Maybe that's why he does it. He's like, I don't want to share these. Here's a way to not share them. I have a question about it. You said chips from the servo. Did you get hot chips from a servo? Service station?
In a little town in Manila, not the Philippines, near Tamworth. Where
Really?
I spent a little time. Yeah, they did. I realised that that's not a thing in Sydney.
Yeah,
because
that's why I was
you
asking.
can
No.
get chips other places, but this service station, so you fill up your car and then you get other snacks and plus minus chips.
Oh, I feel like that'd be good. Like you order the chips, you go in, like park, order the hot chips, then go fill up your car. And then
By the time you finished,
that's
they're ready.
vibing.
That's a great system.
I like that.
Yeah,
I'm a systems guy.
You are a systems guy. You love a good system.
I do.
it's efficient.
Yeah. I like it. We had this is a dumb story. But we used to live in a
setting the bar really low.
we used to live in a unit block, right, that had like a tandem garage, so not like side by side. You could park one car behind another.
Oh yeah, like
But the
in a
weird,
line.
one of the weird things about this garage was it had carpet in it. So we were renting it, but it was like carpeted garage. And me and my wife were like, so luxurious. It's so disgusting, the carpet. Anyway, but
Luxury.
I didn't realize until maybe living there for about 6 months that I was constantly trying to figure out the best and most efficient way for parking the car, opening the door, and reversing it in, and seeing how fast I could do it. But I literally do that with things. I'm like, okay, here's the thing. Like, how many times can I improve it before it's like? So I'm like, where should I line up the car, like, so I can reverse it in? So like, I'd turn up, and then be like, okay, if I line it up with this part, then that works well. Then I can get out of the car, and you had to unlock it. It wasn't electric. You had to unlock it at the bottom, and then like, oh, how do I get that in the key in the quickest to open it up? And then what Ethan, this is why I get so many things done in my life.
That's good. I'm really stoked for you,
It's
Joel.
called adulting.
I'm really glad that you get things done.
Yeah, I'm glad. GTD. That's me.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, let's get to the next question. While you're not getting chips from the servo, Michelle, how did you become a Christian?
In my other life.
Yeah.
Segue.
Yeah, I love it.
Speaking of slugs.
Speaking of slugs, chips, how did you become a Christian?
How did you become a Christian?
Speaking of slugs, chips, and efficiency, how did you become a
How did you
Christian?
become a Christian? Segues all day. All day.
So I grew up going to church when we were little kids. And so my parents would say did believe in the gospel truth, and that God, is in control of all things, that he's created the world, and that Jesus came and died for us. But I don't think that really impacted my life actively in any way. And I'll probably give some stories to sort of show that. But then we moved to Singapore and went to a Chinese church for a little while. And my Chinese was horrendous, so I just spent the service reading books, including like Harry Potter. I remember reading Harry Potter at service, and so nothing really went in. And I just, this is to illustrate like how much I didn't know what was going on, is that like at Sunday school you would have these work pages to write, what are you interested in, what are your hobbies? And my Chinese was so appalling that I copied, this is so embarrassing, I copied the girl next to me.
Awesome. That's
And
so good.
I could read what she had written, and I knew that's not what I do. So she wrote dancing was her hobby. And I didn't dance and had no experience, but I didn't know how to write anything. I was too embarrassed to say, anything else. So I ashamedly copied her. And she's like, do you dance? And I was like, cringing inside.
I do try both.
Yes, I dance.
Yes.
I dance.
I dance.
I dance.
Yes.
And just like reading the Bible in class or praying, I just would mumble because I wouldn't know half the words. Interestingly, that's also where I got baptized. So I think I knew enough to know that, I wanted to, like, God is important, and this is something that should matter in my life, but I didn't really know how and didn't think about it too much. And then when we came back to Sydney, we spent our Sundays going to Chinese school to learn Chinese because of the aforementioned difficulties with speaking Chinese, probably. And then, so we didn't actually go to church for quite a while. Then it was Grace who had gone off to uni and gotten involved with the Christian ministry there and started taking God more seriously. And then our family, then as like the four of us, got back into going to church a little bit. But I did have a turning point, which was after year 12. So I finished, our school was weird. We finished year 12 in the middle of the year. And we did the IB.
The what?
The International Baccalaureate, which is the alternative to the HSC, but it's international.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was the reason for doing
that? We went to a German school.
Oh,
and
that's
just
right.
what they did. Yeah.
So you went
very
to
small German
So you're in
school.
Singapore, but you moved to Australia, and then you went to a German school.
To learn Chinese.
And did you do Chinese on the weekend?
Yeah, so on Sundays instead of church.
Yes, that makes more sense.
Yes.
Yes, no, I understand now.
Okay.
I've caught up.
And then, so
Yeah.
what's the difference between the international baccalaureate
Yeah.
to doing the HSC, do you think?
Different.
I'm just
yeah,
trying to
yeah,
clarify.
no, different subjects. it's meant to be a little bit more self-directed learning is what I've been told, because I haven't done the HSC. You only want to do one of those. So there's like theory of knowledge was a subject. I think that's a bit different. They they wanted you to do different types of activities outside of the academics as well. And then we at school also did a bilingual IB. So some of our lessons were in German and some were in English.
Oh, okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, I hijacked your story.
Yeah, no, that's
Please keep
cool.
going. So you did the international baccalaureate?
Yeah.
Baccalaureate? Baccalaureate.
You can look up the spelling. It's
Okay.
I don't even know how to spell it. It's that's why we call it the IB. But you asked me what it was,
I
so
thought,
I tried.
I thought you were talking about irritable
Baccalaureate.
bowel, and I was like,
Baccalaureate.
Did you say irritable bowel?
that's what I thought you were going to say.
That's IBS, irritable bowel syndrome.
Syndrome, I know,
Yeah.
but I thought
It's
you'd
okay.
shortened it. You know, I thought it was a doctor thing. And anyway, well, so yes, you were doing that. While you look up the pronunciation of that, keep going, please, Michelle.
Yes, so I'd finished high school, and what do you do, in your free time? And Grace was going to MYC, which is Mid-Year Conference, which is a Christian conference that's run in the middle of the year for uni students, and like a few hundred students go to, at that time it was Maru Christian Conference Centre, and you spend a week studying God's Word, singing, hearing talks, etc. And so she invited me along, and Dad kindly paid, which contributed to me going along.
Shout out to Gerald.
Yeah, shout out to Gerald. But it was interesting that I went because I didn't know anyone. So I was going into this conference of a few hundred people, not knowing anyone, everyone else being at uni already. But what struck me was that they were studying the Bible harder than I had studied for my year 12 exams. So I was like, wow, they're taking this really seriously. And so at this moment where I thought, wow, if I really believe that God is the creator of the world, and that he wants a relationship with us, why have I been ignoring him, all my life? And it's sort of that moment of, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't ignore him, and maybe I should take him seriously and listen to what he has to say and have a relationship with him. So, I remember crying and praying to God for that. And then after that, went to uni next year.
Wow. And you said there was a turning point when you went to baccalaureate. International baccalaureate.
Sorry, you said there was a turning point during the
Baccalaureate.
Yeah.
There's something terrifying about the people online can't see this, but when you hit baccalaureate, there's a little mouth. There's a
Oh,
mouth,
wow.
Baccalaureate.
and it's kind of weird, and I don't know
Is
how I
that
feel
to
about
help
it.
people read lips?
Literally,
I think so.
maybe. That's very
I think
cool.
so.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you just finished the international baccalaureate.
Yeah.
And then you went to MYC, is that what it's
Yeah, mid-year conference.
Mid-year conference.
Yes.
And you said that was a turning point. What was different after that, like to how you'd been living prior?
Yeah. So in terms of practical, went to church actually wanting to understand and wanting to have a relationship with God. So I thought maybe going to the Chinese service, I also went to Chinese service in Australia, isn't the best, even though it's probably good-ish for my Chinese, but I wanted to prioritize getting to know God more. And so I went to the English service and did that. So that was helpful, and then, actively reading the Bible. And then it shaped just the way I went into uni as well. Yeah.
You keep bringing up, just a couple of times you've brought up like your Chinese not being very
Oh,
good.
gosh.
Why is that so important to you though? Like
Oh,
you
that's a
brought
good
up, is that
question.
because Grace is really
Grace
good at
is
languages?
good. Yeah, yes. And maybe it's because probably a bit of like cultural identity, like am I Chinese, am I Aussie or not? So I was born in Australia, and so to my like family, I probably seem very Caucasian, like just in terms of like my thinking or like my behaviors and things like that. But then to some, Caucasian people, or just, any Australians, they might think, oh, you look Asian. But I forget that I look Asian sometimes. And we also went to international school as well. So,
So there was lots
it
of
was
different people.
very
from,
mixed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
right.
my year especially was very, very mixed.
Do you want to get better at Chinese still?
Yeah, I think that would be good. I sort of occasionally make attempts. And yeah, I think it's helpful because we communicate that way to our grandparents. So having the basics is really helpful. But yeah, Grace, usually we deflect to Grace when it comes to things like that. And she's really she's stuck out at the Chinese congregation, and she stayed there for the 10 years or whatever. And so that in itself would improve your Chinese.
Yeah.
And then also now at work, she's involved or doing the Mandarin ministry as well.
Yeah, cool.
So I will hear her, praying, leading Bible studies in Chinese and stuff. And so.
The reason I asked that question is actually, is it yesterday or the day before? I was having a chat with my hairdresser, who she's Italian.
Sorry.
What's
random?
Why is that?
Just random.
No,
It's
it's not random. It applies.
No, yeah,
she's
yeah,
Italian,
it's coming,
and
it's
she was saying that she conversed with her grandparents in Italian,
Oh, yeah.
but less so with her parents.
Yeah.
But her parents were both
Yeah.
working, so her grandparents would look after her and they would speak to her in Italian.
Yep.
But she was also saying that a lot of other people of Italian background that she knows can't speak Italian, and they're actually upset about it because they feel like they haven't. It's in terms of their culture, they feel like almost disconnected from their historical context of where their families come from. So that was the only reason I was asking that, was because it seems an important thing. And I think it's also something that we probably lack as someone that comes from a mainly pretty much Caucasian background. I don't feel any connection to language or history or anything like that as part of this country. So even my wife, her grandma is Latvian. It's the same thing that we really want to go to Latvia one day because we want to go see where your family came from to a certain degree. So that's the only reason I was asking that question, was that it does seem to apply to a lot of people that do come to Australia, and it's an interesting thing to think about. It's something that probably I haven't experienced myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's also the other sort of just mix. The thing that was thrown in the mix is the fact that we went to a German school as well. So I think my German's probably the same as my Chinese, if not better. So it's all a bit confusing.
Yeah. Do you think you're better from just being exposed to more languages, just in terms of thinking about things, or even?
And do I think I'm better? Did you just ask me?
No, better at things. No. Gosh, I get a rough ride on this pod, aren't I? Gee whiz. Doesn't apply, Joel. Anything you're saying doesn't apply. You're a slug.
You are. That's true. I think the first statement wasn't true. I think everything you say applies, and it's really excellent and insightful. But you are a slug.
Do you want to answer the question?
Sorry, Joel. I actually do really appreciate your podcast hosting skills.
It's okay. You don't need to apologize.
I do listen to the.
Yeah. You listen to
just
I appreciate
I
that
do.
you've been
It
listening.
made my top #1 on Spotify podcast.
Oh,
kill it.
Not that I am.
And you're
Amazing.
unwrapped or whatever it is.
Yeah, my rap. Yeah, exactly.
Quality.
Yeah.
By the way, what a great marketing ploy by Spotify. But anyway,
Yeah.
Killing it.
just in terms of the way that you think
yes.
and interpret things and stuff.
Yes. I think it did help just being exposed to different types of people, different cultures. So it was very international, my year. And I think I just see, hopefully see people just as people. Yeah. Where am I going with this?
Just being exposed to
Yeah,
something,
I think
right?
just the exposure helps. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. So then you said, tell us about school though. So because you said you were born in Australia,
Yep.
and then you said you moved to Singapore. Was
For
that
about 3 years.
so? You went Australia to Singapore,
Mm-hmm.
and then did you come back to Australia? Is that right? Okay. So then you went to the German school
Yeah, we went to the German school
The
from
whole-
preschool.
the
Yeah.
whole time.
Even in Singapore, we went to the German school.
Yeah. Okay. And so around that time during school, I think, if you tell me if I'm wrong,
Yeah.
but you were saying that you experienced a lot of, you weren't really kind of engaging with God because you were doing perhaps all this other stuff, and also learning Chinese on Sundays and doing all that kind of thing. So what was school like for you? Did you like going to school is really my question.
Mixed feelings. I remember coming home and crying, thinking that I didn't have any friends.
Oh,
And like I said, like we had very small year. So my graduating year was 10 people,
wow.
including me,
Wow.
the whole year.
That's wild.
Doing the baccalaureate.
Yeah.
And
That's crazy.
I was the type of person who get along with everyone okay. Like I just chill out, be friends with everyone. But I didn't get invited. This is my memory. I'm sorry. I didn't get invited to parties because they would, drink, etc. And maybe they knew that I wouldn't do that, or I'd say no anyway. So I sort of was in that in between of friends, but not sure like how close.
We're looking for deeper relationships. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I think so. And so going into uni where there's like many, many more people there, was different.
And so what was the move to uni? What did you decide to do at uni?
So I fell into studying medicine.
Sorry, how does one fall into... Anyway, sorry. Yes, you fell into studying
By
medicine.
the way,
Actually-
you have to do pretty well in the international
The baccalaureate.
to be able to do
To
medicine.
be able to do medicine.
I couldn't get into law. If that's, so we're doing the comparison with Grace. I did not get sincere.
So I just did medicine.
did medicine instead as my fallback.
It was a little bit of what am I interested in and process of elimination. So I do remember printing out the subject list and crossing out things.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So you're talking to Joel here. He's
That's what I
It's
do a
a system.
I did a
System.
similar kind of thing, even though it wasn't medicine.
And I think at the time what appealed to me about med was that I noticed that if people's health is falling apart, then the rest of their lives also, it's hard to keep going in your day-to-day life doing whatever you do. So just seeing that as like such a foundational block of your life, let's go efficiency-wise, like you would want to make sure that's okay focus on that. So so that's why.
And did you said around that time, like you had that turning point at media conference, did that influence your choice to do medicine at all?
Not consciously. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And medicine is a long... you have to do medicine for quite a long time, right?
Yeah. At the same time, after you finished exams, you go, oh, okay, that was a nice error.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Because it does pass, hopefully. So it was a 5-year degree. And I repeated a year at uni, so it was 6 years for me. And then you finish that, then you go into hospital for internship. So you are called a doctor, but you're still, supervised and in training. And then you do another year called residency, and then you sort of decide which specialty you'd like to pursue. And then I chose general practice. And then you do general practice training, and that is what led me into the living in the country for a few years, and you do more exams, and then you're done. So I think it took me 10, 11 years.
I was going to say,
or so.
that's, you're going to be getting 10 years at least.
Yeah. So
Did you, when you fell into that,
sorry.
is that when you were just like, oh, I'll just fall into this 10-year, decade-long decision? Is that what you were
It's
thinking?
sort of like surprised that it happened, So, yeah. I joke that my mom's still surprised I got into med. And it's sort of, I just took it step by step. Yeah.
That's why you have to do that, those kind of things.
Yeah.
So if you're choosing to do medicine and then you're kind of like really committing to God,
Yeah.
is that, I'm assuming if you're doing medicine, there's a lot of work as well. So is there much time for any other things besides just doing uni work?
I did get involved with our Christian ministry on campus.
Oh, what university?
Western Sydney.
Okay.
So in Campbelltown.
Yes.
Did you?
Same place.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think we've had the discussion before, but yeah, went to the same. So we went to the same
okay,
campus.
Okay. Because I keep hearing, Wollongong getting plugged.
Oh,
and-
because they're
For
all from the
those
Shire.
listening
Okay.
online, the look Joel just gave me, it is worth going onto YouTube and zooming in. There was so
But
much
I think I must. Am I?
sass in
How
that.
old are you?
Oh my goodness.
31.
Yes, I'm a little bit older than you. They were building the medicine.
Yes.
campus.
As a third cohort.
Yes.
Oh, so you saw them like.
Yeah, they
build-
took some of
building?
my parking spots where I usually
no,
park.
I'm sorry.
Sorry. It's your fault. They built it on a car park. They had so much free land. Instead, they built it on the car park that they already had. Anyway, UWS campus at Campbelltown is just like an extremely long campus. It's a very odd
Yeah, I think we've had this
design.
conversation.
Yeah, I think we had. And like just to walk, you had like a lecture at one place, and then to shoot somewhere else. You had to leave 10 minutes early to get there because it was so far to walk on.
Goodness.
It's just me throwing my keys
Keys
on
are
the
falling.
ground in anger.
Yeah, unfortunately, the med students just stayed in our medicine building. So even like if you ever had something, on the other side, you're like, oh no, we have to venture out that way.
Get the bikes. They should like have e-bikes to move around campus.
That would be efficient.
That would be required. There's a few stairs though. You've got to go up and down
Yeah,
some
you
stairs and
do.
stuff like
Yep.
that. But where were you living then? If you're going to Campbelltown every day,
Yeah, because I thought
you
at
training?
that point that it was so far and it would take 2 to 3 hours to train. So I moved on to campus.
oh, did you?
Cool.
Yeah, so I moved
Wow.
out.
In those little
What was-
low-level huts
the
that they
res-
have there,
yeah,
right? Yep.
Yeah,
What was that like going from having a year group of 10 people
yeah.
to living on campus with a whole bunch of
Yeah.
people? That's the friendships would change. What was that like?
Yeah, so I was just going in with a whole new set of people
Yeah.
and just finding people you click with and just hanging out together. Yeah. And actually, it wasn't necessarily Christians that I hung out with at that point either. It was just people who just felt like we would be on the same page and hang out, and it's really cool. But yeah, there wasn't much of a active Christian ministry at that time, sort of waxes and wanes. The thing with Western Sydney Uni is there's so many campuses, so it's spread
There
out.
is.
Yeah, so we didn't actually have a ministry worker at the time. So
I'm glad you identified that because I didn't even go to any.
Oh yeah.
Didn't even seek it out or even try and
Yeah.
identify whether there was a Christian group there or not. So
I got drawn into it because my sister's friend's friend, we were emailing at the time because I was trying to find out some accommodation information. And then she was like, oh, I'm a Christian. And she's like super enthusiastic and lovely. And so she was very keen to, bit like reboot. So we had the one Bible study on campus. And I did an announcement, I remember, I think, to the year cohort. It's like, hey, if anyone's Christian, come to the common room. We're just all going to say hi to each other. And so just putting yourself a little bit out there, which is...
was that formative for you? Like actually going, hey, I'm a Christian?
Yeah, I think just speaking up was was hard enough.
Not something you're used to doing.
Not something I'm used to doing, but I think I saw the value in it. And I was like, I want to know where the people are that I can encourage and they can be encouraging to me and stuff like that. So let's suss out who's a Christian, and what better way to do that than make an announcement in front of the lecture hall.
That's so good.
So it would have been a fair few people there. It would have been like
Yeah.
250 people or something like that.
We were
right?
under 200, 100-ish people.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're a smaller uni.
Yeah. Good on you for standing up and doing it.
Thanks.
What were you able to get those deeper relationships you're kind of looking for at school?
Yeah, I think a few. Yeah, so there's some friendships that I have now that are from uni, and some are Christian, some aren't. And I think I also just realized with friends, like there's so many people that you encounter, so sometimes it's great to connect with someone for a little while, but it doesn't necessarily mean you have to always, be in each other's faces all the time. It's just part of our world.
Do you think that, because you said that before you went to uni, you kind of really made a commitment in your faith. Do you think your faith helped you make those relationships deeper as well?
Yeah, I think it gave me a bit more confidence to just welcome other people even though I didn't really know what I was doing, I think I actively tried to think through how can I be welcoming to people younger than me. So as I grew older in a few years, then there would be more people who would join the campus Bible ministries, whether it's met or not, from other campuses, and just being a friendly person. And so for an introvert, that was like, I think what helped me grow, just being like, I'm just trying to care for them and love them.
You just describe yourself there as an introvert.
Yeah.
What does that mean for you?
That generally I'm more comfortable alone. But it's sort of, I don't really, I still have, still processing thoughts about like the definition of introversion and things like that.
Yeah.
But I do notice, because it's complicated, because with some people you hang out with and then you feel tired at the end of the day, and that's how you rest, is just by having a bit of alone time. But then I also, because I've learnt to just be really excited about other people as well, that also is partly energizing. So it's a mix. It's confusing. I've not thought this out.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. Well, I mean, you're talking to two extroverts here, I think. That, like you said, we're talking about like standing up in front of a group of people. Neither you or I are too shy in doing that.
I was really disappointed last week. We were as a staff team looking at the Myers-Briggs stuff, and I just did it again just to double check my personality. And in the past, I got 98% extroverted, and I was really disappointed because I'd gone down to 92, and and I think 92 is still a very high number, but I was really sad that I'd lost my 98.
Yeah.
It must have just been how I was feeling at the time.
Well, my favourite way, I mean, I think I've already said this on the podcast before, my favourite way of describing it is what my mum said, is like, where do you get your energy from?
Yeah.
So I get energy from hanging out with people.
Yeah.
If I actually feel more relaxed when I've hung out with people, whereas you were saying when you hung out with people, eventually you actually you need to get your energy back from putting yourself out
Even
there.
though I've learned to really enjoy hanging out with people, so it's not like I'm hanging out with you guys now. It's really draining. Sorry.
No, but it's important to you're totally right, and it's really important to distinguish that it actually introversion doesn't and extroversion doesn't mean I don't like being alone.
Yeah.
Like I'm very comfortable to sit at home alone with a book, and that is it's
me
good.
too, yeah.
But it doesn't energize me as much
Interesting.
as coming and hanging out with everybody.
Yeah.
Like
I want to read the book and then come out and talk about the ideas that I've read in the book and like get excited about that.
yeah.
See, I also do want to do. Yeah. I don't know.
It's okay, by the way. He don't need to put you in a box.
Yeah.
Straight away, but I think that, but it's sometimes misinterpreted as like, oh, you're an introvert, you don't want to be around people.
Yeah.
I don't think that's true. I think we're all. I think God has made us to be social, and to get, and we just need to be around other people, like in order
I've
to
had
just
comments
have a nice
where
life.
people go, they're actually surprised that I'm introverted because I think I learn to just.
Yeah,
they're people like enjoying their company. And stuff.
And also, it apparently it also is affected by the number of people. So sometimes you can really get a lot of energy. Introverts can get a lot of energy in groups of like hang out with one or two or three people. And then when it, and for some people, if it gets more than that, then it's draining.
Yeah.
Like it's really interesting that it's not humans drain me, it's the number of humans drain me. Or there's lots of different stipulations and different things.
Whereas even when we had carols last week, I'm like bouncing around and talking to people and like
I do better the bigger the number.
Yeah.
So I am heaps more energized by big groups than I am by small groups.
But I also really love hanging out with a small amount of people and getting really deep in conversation.
I think deep conversations help as well.
Yeah.
Like, if you're just having superficial conversations all the time, then
then it's a different thing.
I'm actually a fair bit like that. I'm like, this is boring. Why are we talking about this? And not because it's like the topic. It's like,
it's unnecessary.
Why are we just talking about the weather? Like I want to like know stuff about people and like know about them and really have a conversation of substance.
The other thing I've learned is that sometimes people are interested in things that I'm not interested in. And so how do you respond to that? Just by going, well, I'm interested in you as a person. And so you obviously care about this thing that I don't care about, but let's see why you care about it so much. And so,
Yeah. I totally love doing that
yeah.
too. And we I mean, I remember when my son and I came over to yours and sorry, got to say this right, yours and Grace's place when you were still doing Ride There, and you and I had a conversation for ages, and we're just talking about, we're just learning about each other, and that's what's really, I find exceptionally fun about conversations, is just learning about other people, and which is what this podcast is actually about, really. My next question for you though, Michelle, is do you dance now?
It's a very important question.
She hasn't answered it yet either.
No.
No, I do not dance.
You were telling us about things like Zumba, and we were looking up Tai Bo before.
Not because I do it. I've never done Zumba.
Are you interested in doing it though? I feel like you might be.
I think it would be good for me to maybe get out of my comfort zone and just explore things that are possibly fun, and then decide whether they're fun or not after you've tried them, as opposed to just discounting them before you even tried them.
That's a good point. What is your comfort zone though?
Stop.
Oh.
No, it's good. I just had that in my brain. I was like, it's a good question.
What do you mean? Like in...
What do you like doing outside of work? What are your hobbies?
Oh, yeah,
likes,
I don't like
passions?
that question.
Interests?
I think I spend time just hanging out with friends and catching up with various people. I think that takes up most of the time. In terms of like what I do to relax, so after a work day that's particularly tiring, I like to unwind with some British comedy.
Yes.
So, yeah.
For example?
Yeah.
For example, I remember you put in a clip in your sermon about Richard Ayoade. So that is up my alley.
Awesome.
He's funny.
He's very
good. So British comedy, not always necessarily stand up, but just watching them on a panel, doing
there's a lot of that in
yeah.
England, isn't it? Yeah. Like
So good.
8 out of 10 Cats does Countdown.
Yes,
Yep.
that's
That
right.
is hilarious.
Hilarious.
So funny.
Yes.
Big fat quiz.
Yes, which is, the nice end of the year sort of treat.
Yeah, they just do that at the end of the year, don't they? It's like a Christmas quiz. Yep.
Big fat quiz of the year. And then every so often they'll do the big... Anyway, they'll do it.
Yes, fat quiz of everything.
Yeah.
So just watching them, just like being as people, as opposed to there's a prompt or whatever. Maybe there is, I don't know. But that is funny. I just like watching how people interact with each other in that funny way. And also recently Taskmaster. Have you heard of that?
Yeah, that's Greg Davies, isn't it?
Yeah.
Greg Davies is the host. There's another comedian, but then they sent other comedians. It's a bit of a cabal, these comedians just doing each other's shows and stuff, isn't it? But it's the comedians, they have to do like some random tasks, don't they?
And it's hilarious because some of them are really like, they think of really clever ways outside the box, or sometimes it ends up really badly, and then they just have a great laugh, and he just scores them however he sees fit. And
excellent.
so it's really great to just laugh and unwind. I actually tried to do this as a social thing with our ride gathering on Zoom.
What did you try and do?
Taskmaster.
No, that's great.
That's good. You are a good late night planner.
Oh no, not at all.
You've had 2 good ideas already.
Oh,
the other one was that we should do Zumba. The other one was for late night. We should do what was it, like all different types of random exercise. Like you could do aerobics Oz style.
Yep.
Tai Bo and Zumba. And I'm sure there's a few other ones in there.
There would be so many.
Yep.
I need to write this down for our upcoming planning day.
Oh yes, definitely do that.
But I mean, that's the thing that I actually like about Soulies, is that you guys talk about fun and church a lot, which is not what I'd previously really experienced, because I never went to youth group. So I missed all of that part that is so like essential, like is so part of Soulies' DNA.
It is.
It is. And just the fun, and just when we had the 30th, people like dancing around and things like that is just foreign to me. But so it's great that when we have our meetings, I sort of feel like, Stu tells us what is funny. He throws out ideas and we're like writing them down.
Ooh, that is funny. Yes, write it down.
That is fun to do. Yeah.
What about like you say you hang out with? Is there like just one thing that you like to do? Like if it's, I don't know, this sounds so stereotypical, but like knitting, or is there anything like that? Cards.
No.
Making cards or playing
play
cards?
bridge. Maybe you do
like
card
board
making.
games and stuff like that.
Like what is it? Scrapbooking. I'm trying to think of all these different random hobbies. I'm just trying to see if Michelle has any of those.
No, trying different things. So I did my first paint by numbers with Shamara. Shout out to Shamara.
What's that? Paint my numbers.
You have a painting where you there's numbers and you paint like
And
they've already.
the numbers correlate with colours.
Oh, right.
But the one she bought for us was a discounted one because there were no paints, and so it pushed me outside my comfort zone because you have to, when you paint, you accidentally color outside of the lines, and that distresses me a little bit.
Okay.
And then B, you have to choose the colors, and that also is another like
Too much choice.
But we got through it and we finished it after
Awesome.
1.5 years.
1.5 years. How big is it then? Okay. Sounded like you did it. Like, were you painting the Sistine Chapel?
It's not that big. It's just that it took time and we never actually got around to it.
And you're like, Michelangelo never had to do this.
I could honestly imagine
What are the numbers?
Michelangelo like
Putting the numbers.
putting the numbers on first. It's
And
like,
just what's it taking so long, Michelangelo? And he's like, I'm putting the numbers
put the numbers
first.
on first.
And then he has to decide the colors.
And it's like agonizing over what color matches what number.
I'm just a painter of Jesus now.
Oh my goodness. Oh.
But that was the first time. Yep.
Cool. So you're trying a lot of new things at the moment.
Trying to try.
Why is that?
Why
Because you
is
don't
that?
feel like
Because-
you've done that before.
Yeah, because I don't think, like, I struggle with the what are your hobbies question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you wish you had hobbies?
Sometimes.
Right. So you can talk about them.
So I have an answer to these questions.
Yeah, my latest obsession is watches, and I want to talk to anyone
Oh,
about
really?
watches, but they don't want to listen to it. So
Oh, all right.
maybe is that why you maybe don't have any hobbies? Because you're like, I don't want to bore someone with my hobbies.
Maybe, I don't know. I think I just spend a lot of time talking, like,
Mm.
and Grace and I spend a lot of time just talking, reflecting on life. Mixture of debriefing, mixture of dreaming stuff, mixture of just thinking about people and friendships, relationships, that sort of stuff. Yeah.
That's quite lovely to hear.
I think there's something really beautiful about that. And I think it's one of the things that's really cool about that is, I don't know, there's a point, I'm saying this off the top of my head. And
I
so
couldn't tell.
if it is, I just want to put a thing down being like, it's probably wrong. But
Just say it, and then I'll tell you if it's wrong.
I feel like we can really easily fall into the trap of, because we spend so much time doing the things we like doing, those of us that have hobbies, it's really easy for our conversations to then fall into, well, let's talk about my thing now.
Yeah.
And or it's, I'm going to talk about Joel's thing because he really likes watches and we're going to spend a lot of time talking about watches. And yes, it's not talking about the weather, but it's also not reflecting, nor is it having beautiful like idea build. Like there's those conversations can happen at the same time. So I'm not therefore discounting hobbies, but I am more trying to elevate being able to have those other conversations more regularly. I think that is a really beautiful thing.
Yeah, I agree.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Like-
and I think, the presence of it and the fact that we can be really hyper-focused on the things we like can lead to not having those conversations.
Well, it can be quite individualistic, can't it?
Yeah.
That is
Yeah,
like,
really
well, no
easily.
one talked to me about my game that I play that no one else knows how to play.
Yeah, or it's, I can't believe I just spent the last hour talking to Joel about watches. Like, ugh. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a, and that's probably not going to happen because I would love to talk to you about watches for an hour. That'd be really fun. I'd love to learn new things about that stuff. But yeah, I was just, it's not a, the reason I prefaced with it's probably wrong is because I don't want to black and white say that that one is right and one is wrong, but I do want to elevate the fact that those different descriptors for your conversations are excellent. And
I
it's
think
really
like-
cool
like
and
yours-
really missing.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I was just off the back of that, just saying that like what Michelle's saying is just like thinking about relationships as a whole. I think is a very godly thing to do.
Yeah,
because it's not, I only identify with this person about, and that's all I can talk to them about. It's you're seeing them as a whole person, as someone that God's created, and saying like, how can I love them and serve them in the way that God wants me to, and what they might need right now. And I think having the presence, like you're saying, to be able to go, we're just going to have a conversation. I don't care what we talk about.
It's really cool.
And sometimes I mean, and that's what we talked about before, is like just finding out things about people is really fun and really enjoyable. And I suppose sometimes I come out of a conversation and be like, I can be like, oh, I just talk to that guy about watches all the time, and he didn't ask me a single question about me. As I really value the relationships where we're like going back and forward and finding out more things about other people. But sometimes those people just need to talk about their thing for a very long time. And I think providing the space to do that is what you guys are both saying, is that, sometimes it's just helpful to be able to do that. That was a great tangent.
I think so.
Back to you, Michelle.
Yeah.
What did you think? Like, it's just, I mean, I just don't really know where to go with, like, because you're studying for so long.
Yeah.
I mean, we talk about 10 years. Let's just round it down to 10. I think you said 11, but we'll round it to 10.
Yeah.
What do you think that you most learnt about that time about your faith in God?
That's a good question.
Because there must have been a lot of things going on during that time.
I think the main thing was, remembering that God is in control, and that really helped with feelings of anxiety. So throughout the whole, so first you've got, your med school, you've got exams, you're with a whole bunch of other really clever, people, and just trying to get through. And then you're anxious, or I was anxious going into, work. First being like having still having a bit of imposter syndrome, is like the doctor title that's, I still cringe with that title. It's just weird. And then also going like, there's just you just feel like there's so many responsibilities, and you just, the effect that you can have on people's lives, just how, the reason why I went into med, because it is important, but then also it is also important if you stuff things up. And so having that anxiety going in, so going to work, I was, palpitations, being anxious, praying, and then also throughout like GP training as well, just having more responsibilities because it's just you and the patient in the room. And I think learning to learn things from that about my faith, and just go, like, I'm coming from a good place where I care about the patient and trying to love the patient in the sense of just doing your best, but also recognizing that ultimately God is in control of all things. So I can't fix everyone's problems, and I also am human, and I might miss something. As horrible as it is, you don't want to think of your doctor having missed something.
Oh, but you guys have to know so much.
Yeah, there's a lot of never-ending learning as well, and there's a lot of like, new research coming out and things like that. So it's just always a learning curve. So I remember Dad, when I was studying med, he was like, "What do you have to learn? Tell me, like, let's structure it." And I was like, "Dad, I have to learn everything." And then he just didn't understand that. He sort of gets it a bit now, but I think just that overwhelming feeling really helped me then go, like, actually, refocus, just remembering that God is in control. Yeah.
Was there any anything from the Bible, or any preaching, or any conversations with people that have stuck with you that was particularly helpful from in that?
I think it's over time. I think it's also like people in my life as well. So I had supervisors, not necessarily Christian, but just the way they cared for their patients, and also like, one of my supervisors was 70, and so I witnessed him just say, I don't know what's going on to the patient, just thinking that through. And I go, oh, wow, like having that freedom to just say, look, I'm thinking through all of these things, but at this point, I don't really know what's going on, and that is okay. And I think, that was really helpful.
The pressure of feeling like you needed to know every single thing
Yeah.
but also showing that you're able to try and do the best for them, and you can always go back and figure out what,
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I mean, that happens in so many workplaces. People are really scared to say, I don't know. But it actually really
Yeah.
humanizes like leaders or whatever,
Yeah.
because they can then go, I don't know about this one, I'm going to find out.
Yes.
I think that's,
Yes.
people like hearing that. They go,
Yeah.
oh, like they're just like me. They don't know some things.
Yes.
And then I can come back and go, I've done all this work for you, and I want to do this for you. I think that's a really important thing to have. So I can understand why that was a big impact for you. What about church? What church
Yeah.
were you going to during this time?
Which time? There's like a few churches.
Let's start with the first one.
The very first one was CCC at Milson's Point.
Okay. Milson's Point.
Yeah.
Why did you go to Milson's Point?
So
Because that's just over the Harbour Bridge, right?
Dad's aunt used to go there.
Okay.
So that side of the family, so we would go there.
Mm.
And then I went to, in Singapore, we went to a Chinese church there. Then we came back, no church. And then we went to a Chinese Australian Baptist church in West Ryde. That was when I started taking God more seriously. And then afterwards I did GP training. So then I moved to the country.
Yes,
So I
this is
went
probably
to-
something we could.
Where'd you
get
go
into
there?
Manila Presbyterian Church.
more. Yeah.
Manila with a double L. And that, I think, I really shout out to them, by the way. They just really helped me.
Stop from Tamworth.
Yeah, it's like 40 minutes from Tamworth.
Okay.
They were just so welcoming. So my plan when I went to, move, into the country, I was like, okay, this little town has a few churches. I'm going to check out the Presbyterian church and the Anglican church. And I heard good things about the Anglican church or like the minister there, but I never made it there because on the first week I decided to visit the Presbyterian church and they were just so welcoming.
No, this is
They
it,
got
yeah.
invited to people's homes immediately, like for lunch, and just, and that is, I think, why the all age, all stage model in Soli's just, it was a bit of a no brainer. I was like, I already sort of have experienced this. This makes sense to me. And all cultures. So like the small church, they didn't have a minister at the time, but they still made it work. And it's about maybe 40 people in the congregation that come and go because people travel a lot as well. And I was the only Asian there, but then, never really felt like it was a thing. I was also only one of the few people like my age. So they're either young families, so a bit older than me, or people in their 50s or people in their 70s. And I made friends with a lot of people in their 70s. And in particular, someone at the end, after 2 years of knowing them, said that she really appreciated our friendship because when we hang out and when we talk, it's like we don't feel the age difference. And
It's beautiful.
yeah, and so coming into Soli's, I was like, yeah, this makes sense. Like, we are just friends, and so the fact that they welcomed me into their church family, without even knowing who I was just really, really lovely.
It's really beautiful. Before you asked a probably profound question, you were about an hour and a half away from the slugs that whole time.
Yeah.
And you missed
So
out. And that's
Narrabri is familiar because there's different towns that we can go to, and Narrabri was not one that I went to.
well,
But
Manila's
I-
closest national park is Capitar National Park, which is where the slugs are.
Yeah.
And it's an easy drive to see some slugs.
It's
So
just
if
a very
you're listening,
different vibe if I went by myself.
if
to
you-
be honest. Like,
this is very true. This is very, very true. However, if you're listening and you're from Manila, it's an hour and a half away, guys. Go find a slug. There we go.
Ethan
They
works
might
on the
very well.
Narrabri tourist board.
I do. No, it's not about Narrabri. It's about the Capitar National Park, and we need to get more people on the Slug Sleuth app.
On the app.
On
that
the
makes
app.
sense.
Get maximum downloads.
Okay.
Always plug.
Max down. Always.
plug the slug.
Oh, yes.
Sorry, you were going to say something.
I was just
insightful,
going
I'm
to
sure.
just rewind a little bit about the reasoning for moving to Manila. So obviously you need to do more training, and
Yep.
you have to train Do you as a doctor, you always get sent somewhere else to do training?
You get allocated to different regions, so you had to do another exam here to sort of get allocated into some region, and you put your preferences, and that was just where I was allocated. I did that in internship, and then the year after you could technically do the exam again if you weren't happy with where you were allocated, but I just went with it, and it was a little bit of an adventure, I guess. Yeah.
Did you just choose to go to somewhere in Western New South Wales?
No, so I got allocated to the New England, Hunter New England region. So I did end up going to Armidale and Inverell as well. So I just kept moving up further.
Yep.
And this was me previously thinking Campbelltown was so far. So I knew nothing back then. Yeah. But I think I got 2 interviews, and there's just certain towns and there's a practice there and you just interview there. And just the supervisor was just so welcoming over the phone and just so supportive. I knew that if I was going to be in a small country town and do some emergency department on call, this is the sort of character person that I want.
How did you go? I mean, you said that you lived on campus.
Yep.
And then you also live there. What's it like living alone for that long? Is it difficult, or does it help because you're an introvert?
I still got homesick a lot living on campus, even though I went back every week.
Did you travel to church from there and stuff like that?
So this is how lovely Dad is. Like, he would drive down, pick me up, we'd drive back up. So on Friday evening, and then Sunday evening he would drive me back.
Legend Gerald.
Yeah.
Legend
and that's
Gerald.
also how I got my L plate numbers up as well.
Just driving back.
Just driving back.
That's great.
Yep.
And so I would be at home for church.
Yeah,
That's
very
nice.
cool.
Yeah.
That's really lovely.
What was but it was okay. What was it like living on your own?
In Manila?
Yeah, or either place.
On campus, we had housemates. So it was okay, even though I still felt homesick. In Manila, I sort of had learnt to appreciate like my own company a little bit more, and so wasn't as homesick, but also just hung out with people from church. Like, they had me over for dinner. When I went back a little bit later, I also just volunteered at the op shop as well. So the church has an op shop where people donate stuff and they sell stuff, and so just finding that work-life balance as well was really helpful. So I didn't. So after I finished training, I went back to Manila for a little bit, and didn't do 5 full days. Just had a bit of time off as well for breathing space, but also exercise, and just it was really good.
It must be so much more difficult for doctors and nurses that get sent out to regional Australia that aren't Christians, that don't have a church to just log into when they get there,
and find a church community.
Just a community, right? Like, you just, if as a Christian you just go, cool, I have an immediate source of friends in anywhere I go. Like, not all churches are great, and not all churches are as welcoming and as lovely as that. But at the same time, like, it's like, oh, actually I can go anywhere and I can walk into a church and I'll find people that hopefully love Jesus and will want to be my friend. I think that's really beautiful.
I think it's something that we miss, often our society misses, is how important community is.
Fully.
For that very reason. But also just, we've been told, I think there's a message around it, it's like, be as individualistic as possible. You don't need anyone.
Yeah.
But as we said before, like, being social with other people is actually, you talk about like building blocks of your life and health, like in terms of your mental health and even your physical health. It's like, being around other people is really, really important. Whether you're an extrovert or introvert or whatever, it's really, really important. And I think also even for things like COVID lockdowns and stuff, like, you've seen the effects of that, of not being able to be able to spend, just go to the shops and interact with people and things like that. It's just really important for people, I don't know, to move through life. I was saying to my wife, Karen, it's just like, you need to do that to kind of like bounce yourself off other people to know you're okay. I think, and there's all different wide spectrum of that, but you need to just go like, oh, that person just smiled at me, or the person in the at the checkout said, "Oh, have a nice day." I don't think they're really important things that maybe we take for granted.
Yeah.
And around that community aspect, and a lot of people try and find community aspect sometimes at their gym or sometimes at other things.
And there are
they do.
other communities.
Yeah, there's other
Yeah.
communities. We've been part of soccer clubs and all
Sure.
that stuff. But yeah, I think that Ethan's point about knowing that you're a Christian and like there's going to be a Christian community somewhere there
Yeah.
is really, really special to be able to do that. So
It's really cool.
yeah.
I take back my comment about it being the closest national park. They're a closer national park. They're not as big.
How much time is this guy spending on maps instead of paying attention in the podcast?
I'm paying heaps of attention. I'm just also
Researching.
researching.
Okay. I have a question about exams
Oh,
because you've done
sure.
I'm guessing you've done a lot of exams.
Fair few.
I despise exams,
Yeah.
and I would we talked about being anxious about exam
Yeah.
stuff. That's me. I would get very anxious about
Yeah.
exams and stuff like that. I have to, and it would affect how I studied because it would be like I have to remember everything instead of like having a better approach of like understanding concepts and how to write about them and stuff. What was your go-to strategy of staying calm but also studying techniques so that you could learn things?
I think studying techniques is an interesting one because it's always evolving. So I think only at the very end, it's like, oh, okay, maybe this is the way to study.
Yeah.
But I did have to repeat second year of med school, so you repeat the entire year. Same lectures, same tutes, everything, the same thing.
Why was that?
Because I failed.
Okay. I didn't want to say that. I didn't want to say, was that because you failed?
No, because I loved it so much. I just really wanted to hear all of the things again.
I just wanted to do it again.
And not actually see patients, but just sit in
This
lectures
year
and
was so
stuff.
good. I have to do it again.
Have to do it again.
And then I was like, okay then.
I think going second time round, it helped me with, I was actually less anxious because I think, and also if in future exams, I'm less anxious, I think, about exams than in real life.
That's a good skill to have. I
Which
reckon.
is not great because like real life is ongoing.
Yeah.
There's probably more real life than there is
There's more,
exams
yeah.
in your life.
For real life.
But my mindset was that, well, if I stuff up an exam, then it's just an exam as opposed to someone's health.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So switching that perspective, sure, it's not great having to repeat. I'm also, in a very great position where I have really supportive parents, and I, could afford to repeat. In terms of just like being of young age, finances were okay, that sort of thing. So I do recognize that I have that luxury. But also just having a sense of peace, not being too anxious about the exams itself, because at the end of the day, it's testing what I know, and if I don't know it, would you want me unleashed on patients? Like, I wouldn't want to, for the patient's sake, I wouldn't want to be passed if I didn't know what I needed to know. And so I was okay with that.
I wish I knew that, because I didn't study medicine, as we've clarified. But even then, I was probably really anxious about exams and probably didn't do as well as I probably could have done, because I would lead all this anxiety up to the end and getting it done. So I wish I had. I mean, it was when I was younger, but I wish I had more faith in God to be able to actually just go, it's just an exam, hey, like you can do them again.
And
So-
just knowing that it's not the end all and be all. Like there's some people who we studied with who are no longer doing medicine, it just might not be the thing.
Weird that we just build up, well, I just build up those things of like, this happens, everything's over. If you fail, you're done. I'm like, it's not actually the case. I don't know why I ended up thinking that way. So we've gone across to the decade-long journey to becoming a doctor. You practice as a GP now?
Yes.
Right. Tell us like the best thing about being a GP and the most difficult thing.
The best thing is that you are there for people in so many different aspects of their lives. So people can come to you and ask the weirdest, and weirdest in the sense like these are sort of questions you'd be like, who else would you ask sort of thing. And
the amount of trust that we have in doctors is interesting.
Yeah, and like that they feel comfortable enough with me. It is a real privilege to to meet someone for the first time and for them to like share their lives and share their struggles, their brokenness, you know, crying. Like, you know, I've talked to many people the first time and they've cried. And so it's a real, that is a privilege to hear people's stories and just be a part of their lives in that sense, and for them to feel so comfortable to ask like all the different things. It is hard, I think, because I then open up the space for people to share a bit more emotionally, and then I am also a bit of an empath in the sense that if someone feels anxious or low, I also feel it. Sometimes
kind of take it on a bit.
Yeah, sometimes the first sign of actually me realizing what's going through with them is that I feel it. And then I get tired. And then I'm sitting there in between patients just like typing notes and breathing or something. So that's why. And that's what led me to also just trying to have a bit of a work balance. So I do 3 days a week of clinical work with patients, and then I go down to Western Sydney, Campbelltown to do tutorials as a casual.
That's
tutor.
cool.
And so that's really lovely and encouraging. And then have a bit of breathing space to do, you know, life admin, stuff around the house, and then also church as well. And so just having that space, because I know Saturdays will be busy with church. So then some other time in the week to breathe.
Yeah.
You brought up church there. Tell us how you, I mean, obviously you're very connected with Grace, and she was a big part of pushing to be part of Soul Revival, which is, we're very thankful for Grace doing that. But I'd love to hear that your perspective on choosing to come to Soul Revival as well.
Yes. I mean, a little bit is Grace, of course, because as Wayne said in his podcast, Grace has his vibe, you can just trust her. And so that's been growing in me. But I was also finished my GP training in the country for 3 years already. And then I came back. And so I was looking for a church to go to. And Grace had just made connections with Soul Revival for the 2 years and then wanting to stay friends.
If anyone's wondering what that noise was, it was Ethan's water bottle.
It was a water bottle. And so we ended up starting or helping out with Sunday Arvo Kirawi.
Yeah,
so that was late 2019. And that was really cool. As well, and I think that helped me feel connected with Soulies just by jumping in and getting involved through, and I think I was given permission of that because people trust me because they trust Grace. And then we went into COVID, and but before that we were bring these ideas about Bible chats with Ian and another girl called Bethany. And I think that was really cool. Just getting on board with the Soulies, just the theology, you know, on the same page, and that was good to know that. But also just learning the strategy, and we did Berea as well. So Ian, myself, and Braden were online with Stu, just going through Berea and just learning more about why Soulies does things the way they do, and it was really good to think that through.
Was it the idea of planning a church daunting to you? Or were you just pretty trustful of Grace and God that you were ready to go?
I think I just take it step by step and fall into things and trust God. I don't think
like
too
medicine.
much about like medicine, right? Like if you think too much, I don't think I spent too much time thinking, oh, you're going to be a doctor. Like that is was daunting. And so like if you just say church planting, it sounds huge. But then if you break it up into bits of like, what are you actually doing? What are the basics that you need, and just how low key Soulies is. But I guess the other reason why it wasn't as daunting as it could have been was just the support that we got from you guys. It was really, really cool. Stu gave us heaps of time, you know, meeting with us every week, and just lots of encouragement and just lots of guidance. And so we never felt like we were doing it alone. And I think a good testament to that is just how Carol's went the other week at Ride. That was amazing how this 30 people from Carol just came up and just like, let's do this together. And that was cool. So we're not doing it on our own. Otherwise that would be daunting.
Well, I find every one of you at Ride extremely encouraging because you always do the same thing. You come and do it with us down here as well. Like you came to the 30th year anniversary and you come to Easter and we do all those things together as a church. But I think you have my perception for everyone at Ride is just you have a very much a culture and a make a choice to actively spend time with us here as well. And we are separated by, I don't know, it's like 25 kilometres or something. Yeah, like an hour drive through Sydney traffic and that. But it almost feels like it's not that far away. Like I think that the way that you guys treat it as much as you can, you try and be here for us. It's just the same as you were talking about with Carol's. And I think that is what's lovely about it. And I think the fact is because we all love Jesus. And that's why. And we're planning to come over to Ride in January.
Ooh,
so
very nice.
I'm really excited about that. But yeah, do you feel the same way, Ethan? I feel like you do. I mean, how good is it? How fun is it going to Ride? Like I've only been once. It's great.
It's the best. It's so good.
If I only just had to go over to see Gerald again. But there's heaps more other people. But Gerald is awesome.
100%.
We've got to get him on the podcast, actually.
How much time do you have?
Well, that's the thing. January, don't have much on. We're gonna have to get you to help.
We could do the. Gonna make it. You could do an extended edition kind of sort of situation.
Yes, but we need to get Chris's part 2 in.
That's
as well.
true. That's true. We do.
So maybe we could do Chris's part 2, and then the rest of the month is Gerald.
Yeah. Gerald's January. Oh, the January of Gerald.
Gerald January.
It would be awesome. It'd be so good.
What a legend.
It'd be awesome.
We'll have to get him on.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, heaps of fun.
One of the last questions we asked, because I mean we have been going for about an hour, and it's been thoroughly enjoyable, Michelle. Is when you look over your life so far, what do you wish you knew as a younger Christian that you know now?
I think one of the things is, and I don't know how much I touched upon this, but just realizing that your worth is not in how other people see you or even of how you see yourself, because sometimes you can put yourself down a fair bit, but it's how much what God sees you and how God sees your worth. There's a verse in 1 Corinthians for that, and also Tim Keller talks about it in his book, The Freedom of Self-Forgetfulness, which is a great little book to plug. And I think that would have just been helpful, just having a little bit more, just being a bit more chill. It's not overthinking things too much, and just trying to enjoy what, God has given, and just, going through that a bit more. Yeah.
Can you give us an example of where you wish you'd done that when you were younger?
Yeah.
You seem like being more chill. Was it just to do with uni or is...
Oh, no, just in life generally.
Yeah.
I think one of the times when I subconsciously felt that my self-worth was lower was that I think... And this is a really unhelpful thought, so I'm flagging with that. I'm aware that this isn't a helpful thought. That as a single person not being in a relationship, and you see other people being in relationships, sort of that unhelpful background commentary that you're not worth as much as other people, because you're not chosen by someone. And so
I see.
Yeah, and so reminding yourself that actually you're chosen by God is. And your worth is seen in His eyes is so much better.
Yeah. Well, to not sound like a L'Oreal ad, I think you are. I think you are worth it.
I've forgotten about those ads.
That's amazing.
You're worth it.
That was such a
And you've just done your hair as well. Your hairdresser will be proud. You should send this to your hairdresser.
I do my hair every day.
Sorry.
I got a haircut.
Yeah.
Any final words, Ethan, before we wrap up the chips? That was lovely, by the way.
Yeah.
Sorry I'm making a joke.
No, it's good to break up the tension with, I think we didn't touch upon that as much, but processed about being single for a fair bit, and with other women as well. And so that's always something good to reflect through and to process through. So I think, saying it in 5 seconds at the end of a podcast is not the most helpful thing. So sorry about that. But
no, please don't. This is why we do the podcast, is to just hear people's experiences.
But the other thing, like the encouraging thing about being single as well, is that you do have time. So everyone in the Ride core team before Joey came along is full-time worker plus single. And so just, how are you going to spend your time that you do have, and that flexibility that you do have, and doing this with them is really cool.
No, it's lovely. I really appreciate the way you have not just articulated it, but I can tell that you think about that, because you've openly said that, like, it's been a bit hard for you, but I appreciate that you're willing to be that vulnerable to say that to us.
Yeah, it's a bit of a journey, like everything. Like, you process things, and even though you feel comfortable, you've processed things, it's still hard to say some of those like unhelpful thoughts and then you lying in the background that you always have to respond with good self-talk.
Isn't it funny, like how, even when talking when I was saying about the exams and stuff, it's just like how much negative self-talk there can be in your head.
Yes.
You're like, this doesn't need to be there.
Yeah.
So I can understand that. Anyway, sorry. Any final thoughts, Ethan, before?
I just wanted to say how encouraged I am.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if I overheard this correctly or not, but I overheard you guys talking about potentially ending up sounding a bit pessimistic on the podcast. And
that's true. That's what you were worried about, wasn't it, Michelle?
Yeah, and I so I'm right I overheard that, and I think that didn't happen. Like, I think there's a difference between negativity and just being real. And
kind of critical thought.
Just saying stuff how it is, right?
Yeah.
I think
reality.
I think I'm a realist.
Yeah,
other people
I think you are
but that's
too,
it,
yes.
right? That's a really important distinction of you're not being negative for negative sake. You've just told things how they are, and sometimes stuff sucks.
Yeah.
And that's a totally real part of life, right? And so I want to encourage you and try to point out and say that this is not felt at all negative or pessimistic or anything like that. Instead, this has been really fun and joyful and real. And I love the podcasts that are like that are real. Yeah. And it's really beautiful. They're the best ones. And so, thank you very much.
Thanks.
I was just thinking, you talk about how much you like to focus on relationships and really pay attention to that. And at first you were saying that I didn't know why you kind of fell into medicine. But I think, as always, God has a bit of a plan there, because I don't think if you didn't have the abilities to focus on the other relationships in the way that you do, I don't think I think you're a better doctor because of that. And I think that's probably why you think, and this is me just espousing things, but I think that's why you feel like you fell into it, but it's actually God put you there for a reason. And I think that's really cool. And we talk about grace being really trustworthy. I think it's the same with you as well. I think to be able to, as you said, like, people have cried when they've talked to you the first time they've met you as a GP. I don't think there's many GPs that would have that experience, because you are so trustworthy. They feel like they can be vulnerable exactly the way that you have been today. So I can't fault you for that at all. It's really lovely. And I think you are worth it.
Amazing.
Yeah. And I think it's just, and I'm just going to echo what Ethan said. It's just, it's been really special to have you on the podcast.
Yeah, for sure.
And again, this is why we do this podcast, is to, sometimes it doesn't come out to the last 15 minutes because it takes a while to get comfortable and you haven't done it before. But to hear all these things that have gone on through your life, and even you talk about maybe searching for a little bit of self-identity with the language and all that kind of stuff, is that at that point where you realize your identity is actually in God, things definitely change for you, but you're still grappling with it, which is what you were saying before. You still got to grapple with that stuff. You still got to grapple with that negative self-talk. But the way that you're dealing with it now compared to what you were before you perhaps committed to God is the real encouragement today. So thank you so much. Shall we wrap up the chips, everyone?
I think we should.
Thank you for coming on, Michelle.
Thank you very much.
It's been really, really good.
It's been fantastic.
Fantastic. What do we finish? We finished with a one way, don't we?
Yes.
Thank you, everyone, to listening or watching. If you are, we really appreciate it. We always love it when we get some nice feedback about different episodes that we have. So,
yeah,
I find out sometimes when people come on the podcast, then they go back and listen to all the other podcasts after they've been on. So, but you've already listened to quite a few of them, Michelle. So, shout out to you for doing that. Shout out to Gerald. We'll get him on.
Shout out to Gerald. It'll happen. In the comments, if you want to put how many hours away from the slug you are, that would be hectic.
That would be hectic. And make sure you do that. And listen to the podcast and then watch it on YouTube again to get the double dose. Anyway, then you can do... Oh, that was a medical reference as well. Look at that.
Said the word dose. Anyway, sorry.
Dos. Anyway, we're going to wrap this up. Wrap up the chips. Thank you very much for listening and watching. Thank you, Michelle, again. One way.
One way.